happened to me at the beginning of my career because I started as an entrepreneur. I started a company or restarted a company called Valiant Entertainment, which is a competitor to Marvel and DC Entertainment. And I was very passionate about this company. And like a lot of entrepreneurs, I also partnered with my best friend. And also like a lot of entrepreneurs, I didn't know half of what I was getting into. And it turned out that what I thought was going to be a more straightforward kind of entrepreneurial journey was actually going to be very much a turnaround situation. We inherited a company with a lot of legal problems, without a clear strategy and model, without a strong team, and the list of problems just goes on. We were fortunate enough to recruit a lot of the former Marvel senior management. And for people who are not aware, Marvel was considered one of the best turnarounds in entertainment history. And so we were drawing a lot of learnings from there. And I was lucky to recruit a lot of the Marvel senior management. The former CEO was my chairman. My board had former CFO, COO, CFO of Marvel Studios, and so on. So I was very lucky to learn from this team. And in the end, we were successful and ended up selling the company for 100 times what we acquired it for. And after that, I kind of went down this path that turnaround people go down. So the next company I joined was Housing.com, which some of you may be aware of, the online real estate company after the founder was asked to leave. And it was on the verge of shutting down. The company had 3 months of money left, no clear strategy and model, little monetization, and again, the list goes on and on. I ended up putting together a new team, and we changed a lot of things and ended up selling it to News Corp. After that, I became CEO of a company called FreeCharge, a digital payments company. Again, a situation that was very challenging. With the new regulation coming in for prepaid payment instruments, a business that was already very challenging was practically unviable. And in the end, we sold that to Axis Bank. After that, I was also Chief Strategy and Investment Officer at Snapdeal, which was also in a very difficult situation. And we managed to really transform the company from a company that didn't have a clear standalone kind of identity to one today that is the first gross profit of a consumer e-commerce company. So I've been lucky to see a lot of different situations with overall mixed results, but I would like to think overall positive results, and some learnings that I would like to share, some commonalities between the different situations I've seen. So how do you approach a business turnaround? I think there are broadly 6 kind of pillars or principles to look at. So the first one being capital is oxygen required for survival. This is the most important. Without capital, it doesn't matter how great your team is, how great your product is, how great your plan is. You're not going to have time to execute on any of those plans. In a situation like Valiant, we started the company or restarted the company with a ton of legal problems. So we went to the extreme effort of basically cutting every single cost and focusing all our money on the legal fight. That means we cut our overhead, we didn't pay salaries, none of that, because that's what was required for 1.5 years to solve the legal problems. And once we did that, we were able to raise money and grow very fast. That's obviously a very extreme example, but I'll give you another example I was in. With Housing.com, we had to cut a lot of costs and negotiate a lot of the liabilities down as well. Because one way to do it is to cut your operating costs. Another way to do it is to also reduce your liabilities. Because in a situation like that, getting inflow of new capital is very challenging. Raising money in a situation that's very dire from a third party is close to impossible. Raising money from existing investors is very challenging. So you have to become creative to save money. Another example that I was in was Snapdeal, where we cut costs, but we were fortunate enough to have assets that we could monetize. We own FreeCharge, we own a logistics company called Vulcan Express, We owned a SaaS multi-channel e-commerce company called Unicommerce. So by selling those non-core assets, we were able to generate capital, about 600 crores for the business. But it's absolutely essential to remember that capital is required for survival. And sometimes extreme action is required. The second key principle from my learnings is to understand the situation through both an inside-out and outside-in perspective. Because until you understand the problem, you cannot formulate a clear solution. Often from the outside, a situation looks a certain way, but when you get on the inside, it could be very different. And that was the true with me when I joined housing. From the outside, I formed a lot of assumptions on all the things that were going wrong. But when I actually joined the company, I would say half of those assumptions were wrong. I spent a month meeting about 40 people from all different functions at different levels to understand what was really going on. Because unless you do something like that, you're not going to have a clear understanding of what's going on internally. Therefore, you're not going to have an understanding of the problem. Therefore, you're not going to formulate an optimal solution. I'd say the third kind of key factor or pillar is the new strategy and plan for the next phase of the company is the critical blueprint for success. This is something that is basically a map that will take you to your final destination. So making sure your map directs you correctly is essential. And in my experience, say with Snapdeal, what we did is we spent 3 months learning about all the e-commerce companies around the world, all the different markets, obviously the Indian market, competition, and we said, how do we coexist successfully with Amazon and Flipkart? They have greater market share, they have a lot more capital. And eventually, after these 3 months, we had a 100-slide presentation that was completely data and logic driven. And it formed a very clear conclusion on a path to profitability using the capital we had. But it took 3 months of intense work to do that. Say the fourth key pillar is sell and align your investors, your management, and key stakeholders. Because in a situation like a turnaround, it's not an individual, it's very much a team effort required to execute so many changes at once. And you're never going to get everyone to agree. I mean, in a situation like that, there are high-impact, controversial decisions you have to make. And it's close to impossible to get everyone to agree. But it's important for everyone to understand there is thought, analysis, and logic behind the decisions, even if they don't agree, because you need them to work in tandem with you to execute. So in a situation like Snapdeal, the founders did a great job of over-communicating to the team, just making sure everyone understood what's the new vision, what's the new strategy, what's the new plan. It was better to over-communicate. At housing, I would say at least 10% of my time was spent doing town halls, because we had a couple thousand people. And for them to understand exactly the situation we're in, the path forward, was important to keep them motivated and for them to execute in the correct direction. The fifth key pillar is focus can create tremendous value. Business is a lot like life, that if you focus on a few things or one thing, often you can do it much, much better. If you think about one thing day in and day out, you're much more likely to find effective solutions. You're much more likely to do things efficiently. You're much more likely to preempt problems that may arise. You're much more likely to outmaneuver competition. So the true is valid, especially in a turnaround situation. The examples I've seen is with Valiant, we owned IP, we owned characters across all media. We could have focused on film, television, gaming, consumer products, publishing, a whole host of different media. But we were very clear. We focused on publishing and we focused on movies. And because of that, we got the results. We were named Publisher of the Year. We did some of the best movie deals ever done because of that focus. We ignored a lot of gaming deals and efforts on that side because we knew that these were the two areas that were most important for our company. Something very similar but different happened at Housing.com too. Because when me and the new team joined, the company was involved in so many different verticals. Buying and selling homes, rent, paid guests, hostels. The company was also present in around 40 cities. So we realized very quickly that 80% of the market is in the top 7 cities. And 80% of the economic value we can create is in buying and selling homes. So we said, let's focus on buying and selling homes in the top 7 cities. And with 20% of the costs that we were incurring before, we're able to increase revenues 4 times, increase number of homes listed 3 times, demand traffic 3 times, because of that focus. I'd say the last key pillar is that the goal is survival and success, not popularity. I don't think you'll ever find a leader in a turnaround situation that will win a popularity contest, because some very difficult changes have to be made, often for survival and eventual success. So having that clarity of mind is very important. You know, when I was at Valiant, we spent a lot of time doing movie deals in Hollywood. And I had to negotiate directly with many of the studios and many of the top producers. And I was very aggressive because we were in a position where we had leverage. And I did some partnerships that were extremely lucrative for the company and completely changed the valuation. But I was hated by the partners. But that's what was required to transform the company's trajectory. At Housing, the first week I was there as the CEO, it was clear that we had 3 months for survival, and we had way too many people. We had 3,000 people. And by no measure did it make any sense. And the investors said very clearly, we will bridge finance you only if you cut costs and you do it in the next 2 weeks. So my team and I had to lay off 1,000 people the first week I was the CEO. It was certainly not a popular move, but it was required for survival. So I hope most of you don't find yourself in a turnaround situation, but if you do, I hope some of the things I mentioned, were helpful, even if it's just a small way. And I'd love to open it up to any questions you may have. Thank you. Yeah.
Hello. Am I audible? Am I audible?
No, I can't hear you. Okay. It's a good question. So I think, being a leader in a situation like that is not for everyone. You need to have a thick skin, but like you said, they're very high stress situations. So I think one thing that is helpful is, each subsequent experience, you become better at it. You become better at having a calm kind of level head, because you remember the different situations you were in before, where you thought the sky was falling, but you survived. And then the other key thing I would say is, these are important business decisions, but it's not life or death, frankly. So it's important to keep things in perspective, that you're not, saving lives here. To some extent, your decisions will make a big impact on jobs, economic value, and so on. but it's not life or death. So it's important to put things in perspective in that respect as well.
Hello.
Any
Good
other
afternoon,
questions?
Jason. You said the breathing oxygen is required, the capital, the minimum capital required. How would you define the quantum of that capital?
So how do you define what?
The quantum of the capital required for breathing in the last minute.
So if you're at a point where you've already created your strategy and plan, then of course you can model that out, right? That would be like a monthly P&L cash flow. But often you're not there yet. So the key is to kind of always leave a big buffer, because as you know, as entrepreneurs, everything takes longer and more capital than you expect going into it. So these kind of situations, frankly, are no different. In fact, it might even be heightened. So the key is to reduce your liabilities, cut your costs as much as possible. And you can use comparable companies as a framework. If a lot of similar companies that are successful in your space have 30% of the cost base that you do, then clearly there's a lot of room to cut, for example.
Hi, Jason. My name is Vishad, and I'm a co-founder of a vending machine company called Vendor. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
All right.
I can
I'm a
hear.
co-founder of a vending machine company called Vendor, and I was wondering, since you've been associated with FreeCharge, I was wondering if you can, work on the loyalty points. As in, somebody comes to a vending machine, they pay through FreeCharge. Next time they come in, they get some sort of loyalty points. Will you be open to that?
So I can't hear the second part of what you said.
So, since you're associated with the FreeCharge, say some customer comes to our vending machine, they pay, we do digital payment, so they pay using FreeCharge, right? So next time the customer comes in, they get some sort of loyalty points, like say 20 rupees, 30 rupees. So next time they come in, they get that sort of discount. Are you open to that sort of partnership with us? It's more of a
I didn't
business.
fully hear the question.
All right,
It's not
let's
very
meet
audible.
outside, like if that is cool. Outside, like.
Sure,
after
happy
the-
to talk afterwards.
Yeah.
Yep, sure.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kothari. I request Ms. Preetima from Franchise India to please come on stage and present a memento to Mr. Jason Kothari. Please give it up for Mr. Jason Kothari, ladies and gentlemen, for a very effective and power-packed session. Thank you so much, sir.